Good Friday morning. I'm looking at Matthew's Gospel, okay? And I don't know this, okay? I'm not an exegete, but I think in the early church, this was Matthew, who's Jewish Christian, really laying the wood to the Pharisees, Sadducees and Pharisees, the leadership of the Jewish community at that time, okay? And you have to remember, which is really, I don't know how to put this right, the great struggle was the separation of Christianity from Judaism. And I think this is Matthew's way of showing the Jewish Christians why we are Christian and not Jewish. Because in this text, it appears that at least the leadership of the Jews is rejected, the Pharisees and the scribes. And it's a famous text. And the landowner goes out, plants a vineyard, okay, and then he leased it to tenants and went on a journey. When the vintage time came near, he sent his servants to the tenants to obtain his produce. But the tenants seized the servants, and one they beat, another they killed, and the third they stoned. Again, he sent other servants, more numerous than the first ones, but they treated him the same way. Finally, he sent his son to them, thinking, they'll respect my son. But when the tenants saw the son, they said to one another, this is the heir. Come, let us kill him and acquire his inheritance. They seized him, threw him out of the vineyard, and killed him. Okay? What did he describe? He just described the prophets over the course of Jewish history, and of course, in the end, Christ. This is a description. So he threw him out of the vineyard, okay, and they crucified him outside, killed him, you see. He's saying that the Jews have been rejecting, the Jews historically, his own people have been rejecting the prophets, but they've betrayed what can I say? I'm not getting this right. They've betrayed the true servants of God, which were the prophets, and finally the ultimate servant of God was Christ Himself, the Son. Okay. So then they answered him. What will happen to these people? He said, He will put those wretched men to a wretched death and lease His vineyard to other tenants, who will give him the produce at the proper times. Who are the new tenants? The Gentiles. That's what he's saying, the Gentiles. Jesus said to them, didn't you read in the scriptures, the stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone? To the Lord, by the Lord has this been done, and it is wonderful in our eyes. It's the Gentiles. That's what he's meaning. Matthew is laying the wood to the Jews, his own people, saying, you had your chance, but you were not good servants, okay? You were not good tenants. You were not good tenants, and you've rejected the servants, we were prophets. Well, now you're rejected, and now the land will be given to new tenants. And who are the new tenants? They're Gentiles. Therefore, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to the people that will produce its fruit. When the chief priests and Pharisees heard this, they knew he was talking about them. And although they were attempting to arrest him, they feared the crowds. They regarded him as a prophet. For the crowds thought of him as Christ as a prophet, you see. The line was this. I'm looking at the struggle of the early church. The struggle of the early church was to recognize the uniqueness of the Christian vocation, the Christian religion. We're not Jews. We're not Jews. We transcend Judaism. We come from Judaism, but we have also transcended it. We are a global religion. We belong to no sect, no ethnicity, no place in history. That is, no place on the earth, no one place. We are global. And I think at this time right now, we're right there. I think I've said this many times here already, my own reflections, whatever they're worth. I think since the Roman Empire, this is the greatest moment in the history of the church in terms of its expansion into a global consciousness. It's not just, yes, a global consciousness. It was Romanized in the 4th century. It's now globalized in the 21st century. I really believe that too, very, very strongly. I think Europe, you want to reject something, you could reject the Church of Europe. And we want to come close ourselves, insofar as they've had 2,000 years of Christianity. 2,000 years of Christianity, and it's virtually abandoned in Europe. It's there in segment forms, It is there, and I think, and it's heroically in many places, but as a culture, it's rejected. It's secularized. It's been secularized since the Renaissance, but it's certainly true of the last 200 years, at least, certainly. Europe is hardly Christian. It's Christian in its history, but it's hardly Christian in fact. It's neo-paganized, to be blunt about it. It lives on its memories. It lives on its memories. I don't look to Europe for anything, actually, to tell you the truth. My family still are in Italy, and we have a house there, have a home there. Yeah, in Tuscany. I should write a novel. I have a home in Tuscany, which is true, I do. You see? But I see the life of the faith in my family in Italy and all the rest, but I don't see it culturally any longer. I see it in the backdrop of the culture, but not as an active force in the shaping of the culture. You wouldn't have gotten the 20th century, the horrors of the 20th century, if Christianity was vibrant in Europe, wouldn't have given rise to monsters like Hitler and Mussolini and others. Even Russia wouldn't have given rise to Stalin. It's just the truth. It's the truth. But the fertile ground, to my mind, is Asia. I really believe that, too. I believe Asia is the future, especially China. It's had Christianity since day one, but not in a central piece, and I think it is fertile ground for the gospel, just as the Roman Empire was at the time of St. Matthew. Pagan, but in search of something more. And what the world needs now is a new anthropocentrism, a new anthropology, a new and revigorated vision of who and what is humankind, human dignity. We have lost the morality of human dignity in favor of political correctness. We have really, really bastardized our humanism. It is not. It has none of the robustness it requires and once had, where human dignity is foremost, not human rights in a political sense, but a profound rooting in what constitutes a human right. Kant saw that in the 18th century because he's already seen the collapse. He was a good, faithful Lutheran. He saw that human dignity lay in its intelligence and its freedom and its inviolability, human inviolability. And yet a century and a half later gives rise to Nazism, of horrific violation of human dignity. And then it's simply the truth. We are, I think, I won't see it, but I think we are at the edge of a new global Christianity, which is, I think, the redemptive hope of humankind. It will reinvigorate an anthropology of human dignity such that it will become the underlying morality, profound morality that undergird the political order, not out of piety, but out of a profound insight to the inviolability of human beings because of their inviolable dignity. I think that's the hope, and that's the heart of Christianity. It's the heart of Judeo-Christianity. And I think the Christian gospel will be the vehicle by which a profound morality will eventually emerge that will be global and sustaining of democratic governance and constitutions, etc., where human dignity and human inviolability is an absolute. I believe that, actually. I believe it. I believe it with hope. I consider that the gospel is the hope of human redemption in this life, not the next, this life, because it offers a chance. It offers a wisdom, a human wisdom, a wisdom of human dignity, and in that dignity, fundamental rights. I'm not saying any of that well, but it's what I'm trying to reach for and say it. I have hope that the Christian gospel will save the world from itself, from its vanities. And where I see it going to happen, it's going to begin in China. It'll be the recovery of a global Christian, the recovery of, and then a restoration and a fostering of Christian wisdom, Christian humanism, a humanism that will nurture the great democracies of the world, the hope of humankind.